Meet the cereal kids are crazy for, Cthulhu's. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now, you will take part. Save up to 33% off gem bundles, you will take part.
Crazy crispity, crazy crunchity, crazy
Select chests up to 50% off, you will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off, you will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor, worshippers, and XP, you will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y, Cthulhu. Certain General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a surprise because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time is a construct. Abandon all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balanced breakfast. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Hey there, SMITE fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
Hey there, SMITE fans, and welcome in to the beginning of the SPL here on Friday. Aggro and Taco here to take you in to some pretty big games, particularly our second matchup of the day, as that is going to be in studio, which is always a great time. But first, we got to take a moment to give a shout out to our exclusive title sponsor of Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League, which is, of course, Alienware. All of our pros rocking those awesome Aurora R10 Ryzen Edition desktops, and of course the 240Hz 25-inch Alienware gaming monitor. Make sure you're heading on over to smitegame.com/Alienware and following Alienware on all their platforms @Alienware, or checking out their global community, alienwarearena.com. That's for giveaways and more. With that in the books, Taco, it's time for us to start talking about our first matchup of the day. The Solar Scarabs up against the Valhalla Valkyries, two teams that we know will not be joining us for our Phase 2 playoffs, but two teams that have games like this that still matter to them as they try and mature and get ready for Phase 3.
Definitely looking at the Solar Scarabs, especially for this one, given the fact that, they're the ones with the most recent roster changes. And having Stuart, Scream, we've definitely seen glimpses, but the same could be said for the Valhalla Valkyries. We've definitely seen moments where both of these teams, I think, really showcase the fact that they are contenders of the league for a reason.
Yeah, these guys have really been able to show quite a bit so far here in Season 8. And these two teams sitting at 1-11 apiece, as I mentioned, now eliminated from the Phase 2 playoffs. But you hear the players talk about it all the time. Scrims are so different than ranked, which is, the furthest away. And then your overall real games on game day end up being so much more different even than your traditional scrim environment. These games are valuable practice time for these teams as they get ready for Phase 3.
Without a doubt, and not only that, but if I'm the Solar Scarabs, I'm also looking for a little bit of revenge here, given the fact that the only win the Valhalla Valkyries have had so far this split has come off of defeating this Solar Scarabs team a little bit earlier on in Split 2, although keep in mind that was when they had their coach filling in, Slaney no longer in that substitute position, now a solidified roster here for the Solar Scarabs, so that does mean Valhalla Valkyries have a little bit more as far as preparation is concerned.
Yeah, I think that might be something that we're going to see a difference here. Of course, that was a big win for the Valkyries, snapping their loss streak, preventing them from having the longest loss streak in SPL history. But as you mentioned, now the Scarabs kind of in prime position to be able to turn it around. They've been playing pretty well as of late, even despite not finding a whole lot of wins. I think this addition of Scream and Stewart to this roster has done a lot for the Scarabs.
And most particularly, I think we've been seeing a lot of action getting generated out of the solo and mid lane. Baronic, Solo Patrol, they've definitely been utilizing a lot of that pressure that Scream has been able to build outside of the jungle and transitioning those wins elsewhere. And again, even though it hasn't necessarily led to set wins for this team, the implication is still there that it's not going to be easy by any means. And whatever the Valhalla Valkyries saw from the Scarabs that first time that they clashed, it's going to be like an entirely different team here now with Scream and Stewart.
Don't forget, this Scarabs team is coming off a game victory over the Olympus Bolts, one of the top teams in our league, where they were able to really turn around that game 2 and make some big plays in order to get back into it. Really debuting some interesting picks alongside of the Sylvanas for inbound, standing out to me.
Yeah, Sylvanas has been a rather interesting pick so far. We've been seeing some teams even prioritize bans towards him. I think that set from yesterday comes to mind. Genetics not having the option to look for that Sylvanas, but this is about the Valkyries and the Scarabs. And as far as the Valkyries and Scarabs are concerned, I think that it's pretty safe to say that Scarabs definitely thrive in a more chaotic environment, and Valkyries not so much.
Yeah, Valkyries have definitely had their struggles trying to find what types of compositions they want to run and then finding success within those. So maybe the Scarabs can try and take that to them in the picks and bans. But as you mentioned, Taco, it starts with that mid lane. Baronic has really been stepping up as of late, and he's joining us right now for his pregame interview. Baronic, thanks for taking the time before the match to sit with us. How's it been so far working with Scream in the jungle? He told me, this is true by the way, he told me last night that he was really in a mood and he was going to really pull out all the stops today. Does that encourage you or worry you going into this set?
Yeah, I think we're turning on the Jets. We really want the 7th seed today, but it's been a pleasure playing with him, honestly though. He brings I mean, as I've said, I think the last interview, he brings a dynamic that's refreshing to the team, and yeah, it's just super easy to work with him, I feel, which is not what a lot of people has said about him in the past, but
yeah, it's certainly been working for you guys there so far. Knowing that you guys are not going to be able to make the Phase 2 playoffs, what are some of your goals in these remaining few games of Phase 2?
I mean, as it has been the same for the rest of the split for us. I mean, it's been a rough phase with all the roster changes and stuff, but like the past 2 weeks, every single one of us in all 5 positions, like you just see clear improvements across scrims and in SPL games, in my opinion. So that's just a really good sign for us going into the next phase and into Worlds, and that's all that matters, really.
Continuing to improve, that's the goal. Baronic, good luck today, man. Looking forward to the games.
Appreciate it.
You heard it right there, Taco. I mean, it's been consistent improvement in all 5 roles, and I agree with him. I think the Scarabs have been looking a lot better as of late, even if the standings might not reflect that improvement.
It just seems as though Scream introduces a little bit of direction for the carries, and I think it's also something to have somebody as experienced as Scream, because it makes things like shot calling a little bit more precise as well. I mean, have to remember that win that they got up against the Olympus Bolts came from a pretty crazy and what some might deem reckless Fire Giant call out of the squad, so I would definitely say that they've got a few tricks up their sleeves, and hearing that from Scream, I don't think it worries me, at least. If anything, it makes me excited to see what he's going to do here.
Yeah, Scream was giving me the info last night. Let's just go with that. We'll see what he ends up actually pulling out here today, because he's going to have to pull out something pretty good in order to take down the Valhalla Valkyries, because this was their win last time around. Scream was not here for the Scarabs, but in particular, the Valkyries, when they've been playing well, it seems like they've been trying to facilitate Zeros a little bit more as of recently, trying to get him the ball, so to speak, and let him be the primary carry for this team.
Something I would definitely expect to be a little bit more of the focus even might come down to the drafting itself, Aggro, because all the success that we were seeing from Zeros, a lot of it hinging kind of on this Raijin, and Raijin has certainly been a mid laner of prioritization for many teams at the SMITE Pro level. Not only that, but we've been seeing a lot more of the Gilgamesh, some of this warrior jungle coming through from Johnny, and Valhalla Valkyries, I think, recognizing the fact that early game might just be the most charming point for them.
Yeah, that might be the type of strategy they should be going for, playing to that early stage and allowing them to get some leads, run down with some of these CC-heavy compositions. Johnny going to more supportive things is an interesting look for this squad. Not the typical, he's playing Apollo jungle in this clip, but the Set, the Loki, those things that he was really trying to make work at the beginning of this season, seems like they want him on more supportive gods these days. It's just a matter of whether or not that can really facilitate a victory for them.
And this is a little off topic. You ever notice how dramatic Serket is in her death screen?
Yeah,
What's up with that?
Well, she really doesn't want to die.
She really doesn't want to die.
No, she's got stuff to take care of. She can't afford to be dying now.
Well, where do you think she's trying to go?
That one I cannot say for sure.
What are some of those areas that she's
I
got
would
business?
feel inappropriate trying to guess the intentions of a true god.
Fair enough.
I don't want to throw my hat in that ring. Though we can start to try and guess some of the intentions of the Valkyries and Scarabs going into this set. You mentioned that Gilgamesh pick. Raijin obviously in the mid lane still seems to be a heavy priority. We saw Tiamat even after the nerf that she took earlier on in the week. I think that those mid lane gods of Morgan Le Fay, Tiamat, Raijin still feel like they're some of the highest priority picks you can be going for.
And especially for somebody like Inbound, I think, taking a different shift of direction towards that support role. Bobby's looked best, quite frankly, when he's on something aggressive.
I agree. Going for some of those more aggressive options, Sylvanas included apparently, because that's on the table. We'll see if the Valkyries decide to take that away on the top 3. I doubt it, but maybe if they save Bobby's pick for the bottom half of the draft. The Valkyries in that first pick position usually like to try and prioritize those gods for Zeros, as we've been talking about.
Maybe looking towards eliminating stuff such as Artemis going to already make its debut. All Valkyries have determined they do not want to see the Solar Scarabs dual lane try to deal with any sort of Caledonian boars. It is a pretty big team fighting advantage. Odin has been another incredibly popular pick, and I think, I was expecting the Valkyries to look for a bandway of it, but I think because of the fact they're in that first pick position, Solar Scarabs maybe felt a little bit more pressured to try and strip that one away.
And it ends up with a Tiamat ban alongside it. So Artemis and Tiamat, premier backliners, banned away so far by the Valhalla Valkyries, whereas the Solar Scarabs looking more towards that front line in the Odin and the Gilgamesh. With only Tiamat off the board, I'm looking at some of these mages. They got to start to get banned soon, or else they're going to be left open.
I think Zeros is totally happy whenever he can get that Raijin pick. Wouldn't be surprised to see it come through as a first pick option either, but if the Valhalla Valkyries don't ban Giannis here, wouldn't be surprised to see Baronic respond in kind with that through space and time. Global assets, always a big benefit, and Solar Scarabs kind of anticipating them to maybe look towards banning away either an Osiris or Loki pick, really just try and prevent Johnny from finding himself in a comfortable position.
Those have been picks that he's liked recently. Fenrir as well comes to mind as something that both Scream and Johnny have locked in the last few weeks. The Valkyries really taking their time to think over this third ban. And it's going to be Sobek interestingly enough. I mean, we were just talking about inbound on these aggressive supports, but Sobek doesn't really feel like that premier aggressive support right now.
Well, it could just be something that Zeros doesn't like dealing with whenever he's on the Raijin. Really just all depends, because Sobek can be rather annoying with the plucks in general, but I agree. I don't think that he really screams that much of pressure, at least. Like, he can definitely have some solid initiation, but if you're looking for a pressure pick, Emoja can certainly get the job done. Raijin having been taken off the board there for the Valhalla Valkyries to shift their focus elsewhere now towards that front line. But I don't think that Emoja is something that the Solar Scarabs would have opted for outright, aggro.
Maybe. They have liked it, but inbound's win rate, of course, well talked about at this point on that Emoja pick. But he has looked really good on it the last few weeks, and I think the results, much like the Solar Scarabs roster, the results not really reflecting the level of play on that pick in particular. So the Valkyries do take it away from him, and it's going to be a Cerberus pick as the response, immediately locking in something that can build some anti-heal, has it innately, of course, but then that Tainted Steel start might be looking attractive here to the Solar Scarabs, as Cerberus and Giannis are their first 2 picks.
No real surprises seeing that Giannis come through yet again for Baronic. Have to remember that that was also another reason why those bolts ended up dropping a game to this Solar Scarabs roster. Baronic was having a fantastic time in the late game with through space and time, and accuracy, not even really so much a necessity when it comes to Giannis. It's more so just the fact that you just cut off the escape factor entirely for the opposing team, especially surrounding that objective play. But with Osiris having been left open, Valhalla Valkyries probably happy that they're able to secure that one for themselves. Granted, if they don't take Zeros' pick now, there's a very strong likelihood that the Solar Scarabs are just going to opt to ban everything away.
Yeah, that's where I'd expect them to go for sure, but they decide not to. It's Osiris and Heimdall, the 2 picks here for the Valkyries. Worth noting that Baronic's last 3 games on Giannis, his score lines are 1-0-4, 5-2-10, and 4-1-5. Now, only one of those is a victory, but still some good score lines across those games, so has been pretty successful on it as of late. And it will be the Fafnir as the lock-in here for inbound. So it will be Cerberus in the solo lane as expected for Solar Patrol. And we were looking for something aggressive for inbound. Does Fafnir fit that bill enough for you?
I think that Fafnir certainly gets the job done as far as outright aggression is concerned. The main thing is I want to see Solar Scarabs kind of round off some components to really complement that coerce, because when you see Fafnir, you immediately think objective burn, objective shred, but might not necessarily be the case depending on what they choose to follow it up with. And I also really like the Fafnir here, though, just for the simple fact that Disarm's going to be incredibly annoying for the likes of a Heimdall to deal with, especially in that early to mid game. Same thing for Osiris. So I feel as though leaving the Cerberus open to build a little bit more hybrid, it's a lot of damage that could be coming out of this Cerb solo in that mid game.
And especially when you've got a Giannis in the mid lane whose magical damage isn't quite as consistent as other mages, adding something like the Cerberus feels really good there. As it is some mages banned away here by the Solar Scarabs, it's going to be Hell and the Morgan that are denied from Zeros in this game. That does mean, notably, Taco, that Morgan Le Fay is still open.
Morgan Le Fay is open, but how comfortable Zeros feels with it is another discussion entirely. Although the fear might be appealing, because a lot of what the Solar Scarabs have opted for so far in terms of frontline is within that melee range. So Morgan Le Fay, I think, has some decent range, but it's not going to be locked in just yet. Toying around the idea of a Hercules instead. A lot of aggression, at the very least, from this Valhalla Valkyries composition. I think whether it's Hercules or Osiris, I'm kind of leaning more towards Hercules in that solo lane as opposed to the Osiris. Really don't know how to feel about Hercules jungle. Think that that one's better left in the vault, personally. But I think it's important to also note Solar Scarabs, only member right now that can't get out of that River's Rebuke. It's going to be Stewart on this Hachi.
Stewart on the Hachi could struggle in that regard, as it is a Persephone. I was going to bring that up. Between Morgan Le Fay and Persephone, the 2 mages that I'm a little surprised are left open. Persephone seemed pretty hot and cold so far in her first few debut games in Phase 2. How do you think Zeros is going to fare on it here?
I think that Zeros has probably missed the likes of Persephone. I have not missed having to deal with Persephone in games, but she could definitely put a pretty big damper. Again, just highlighting the fact that a lot of this frontline melee range damage from the Solar Scarabs Fenrir only going to enhance that even further. But if the Solar Scarabs can hit the ground running, that could pose a lot of issues for the Valhalla Valkyries, because as far as crowd control is concerned, definitely leaning more towards the Solar Scarabs here.
Scarabs have quite a bit of it. I mean, Fafnir stunned, Fenrir stunned, Cerberus stunned, Hachiman stunned. They've kind of got it all when
Even
it comes to the CC department. Slows are certainly going to be there as well, but the Valkyries aren't CC light by any means. You've got Hercules and Osiris to give that good front line. You've got these Umoja walls, which act as pseudo CC and corralling everybody in. And then the Persephone ultimate as well. I like the Umoja Persephone combo. Get them all in a little alleyway and have Persephone fire the ultimate right down.
Curious to see how effective that Persephone ult is going to be as well up against the likes of a Giannis, because Giannis, I mean, he's known for being a menace and a true escape artist, and that might not be the case with what the Valhalla Valkyries have opted for. If they're able to utilize the crowd control that they do have, then I think the escape notion is going to be pretty hard to actually hit for the Solar Scarabs here.
Plenty of extra mobility here for the Scarabs, no doubt about that. Giannis only adding to that sort of mentality. And between the Hachiman ultimate, the Fenrir leaps, they've kind of got it all when it comes to mobility. Feels like we're both leaning to the Solar Scarabs composition feels pretty good, but I think this Valks comp is one that can start to run away with the game fairly early if they get a lead.
I think for me, the difference maker is that the Solar Scarabs composition just feels a little bit more lenient in terms of if you go for that initiation and then it doesn't exactly work out, well, it's fine. You don't have to scatter and panic. You can always just pull back and then look to reaggress. On the other hand, for the Valhalla Valkyries, I think this is a little bit more execution dependent. You don't really want to be revisiting team fights.
No, you really have to be able to get in there right away, though the sustain being over there on the side of the Valkyries does really throw a wrench in things if you're the Scarabs who want to reinitiate. Plenty of healing from the Umoja, the Hercules there as well for Ducky. We'll see if the Valkyries can sustain through the engagement here for the Solar Scarabs, or if the Scarabs can find the revenge victory over the Valks. Game 1 between the two teams that are looking to get some practice in for Phase 3 coming at you soon. We got J-Mac and Mifflin bringing you the game.
Thank you so much, Aggro and Taco from the desk. As highlighted, it is J-Mac and Mifflin for this. We're going to have Doug as our spectator, as per usual, for it. I promise, it is going to be Doug.
I just had to deal with Jithens, man.
It is going to be Doug this time. I promise, or I hope I promise for it at least, that it's going to be Doug, as we wait for the game to get going for it. And it will finally jump in here. But this is a big game for both these teams. Well, they may both be out of playoff contention for it, as they are sitting 7th and 8th seed, and really no way for them to get in at that point. But it's still a big one, kind of for pride amongst these two teams. The Valhalla Valkyries were able to defeat the Scarabs previously in their last engagement, though that was before the Scarabs were able to get their newly formed roster. That was kind of at a weakened state for them. But now we get to see the Valkyries take on the newly reformed Scarabs, who've been looking so hot in these last few sets that they've played. Haven't been able to find a win in their column just yet, but that doesn't short anything for it. This Scarabs roster has been looking very strong since their change.
Yeah, I got to agree with that one. That Scream addition has been so huge for this team. They've been really rooting their aggression through their jungle player, generally around the solo lane as well. He really likes to hover around and play around SOT, so I think that's something we can expect to see here today. That said, the Valhalla Valkyries have similarly been making some strides inside of their game. Johnny and Zeros have been playing together very well recently. I'd argue that Emilito has really stepped up in recent weeks as well. Although this set won't have too much reflected in the standings, won't reflect on playoffs too much, certainly at least some dignity on the line here.
Yeah, it's a big one for both of them in that instance. As I highlighted before, it was a win for the Scarabs. The Valkyries didn't really look that bad for them in their first matchup here. And they've been looking a lot better in their recent matches too, as you highlighted for a lot through Emilito and Zeros, and Johnny's really been pushing a lot of that early game towards Zeros, making sure that he can get his mid laner ahead so that way they have that opportunity towards late game. But they've been struggling as they get towards that late game, where the Scarabs have been able to make themselves a little bit stronger towards that late game, even taking a game away from the Bolts in, what was that, like a 40-44 minute match.
But the Scarabs have always been known as a team that is able to establish a lead in the early, and the way for them to do that inside of this match is largely going to revolve around Scream out of the jungle. This Fenrir should be the progenitor of the majority of the aggression, at least early on inside of this set, and so far, he has yet to rotate over into the dual lane. I think I watched too much SCC this morning. I'm so used to watching these guys show up in the dual lane at level 2. Feels like they're still playing that Season 7 Lasbra style, where they like to gank it out there, but instead, a much more slow, calculated pace to this one so far. Solar Scarabs, though, getting the better end of some of the farm on the map, already establishing themselves a 200 gold lead. And taking a peek at the builds, it seems like most of them going for generally standard starts. Not really too much interesting, barring Amelito, who goes for the Death's Toll in that starter item slot, maybe goes for the Death's Temper, potentially Death's Embrace later on. I'm excited to see how he decides to itemize.
I'm curious to see where Johnny and Scream are going to go as well, because they've gone for these Bumba's Daggers as their first items, where previously it's been pretty much exclusively Mannequin Scepter as far as Osiris's go, and then you have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to Fenrir. Sometimes the Mannequin Scepter, sometimes Eye of the Jungle for it, so I'm curious to see which of those items that they'll go towards at the back end, if it'll be the hammer or if it'll end up being the spear.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit more likely to be the spear. Hammer seems like it's really fallen off in favor of some of these players recently, as Zeros caught out in mid, dropped down to just below 20% HP. Scream had the opportunity to chase that one out if he was willing to trade out his life for first blood, and that's how that would have gone. Likely would have got it, but definitely doesn't get out of there alive.
Yeah, I think if Scream was there like a half second earlier, he would have for sure jumped at the opportunity once he fell through the portal, but fortunate for Zeros. He's able to get away. Didn't have to use his beads either, just ate the damage, had to go back to base to go for a nice reset, and that'll get him tier 2 towards his penetration early on. Both mid laners going for a little bit different now with the adjustments to the Vampiric Shroud. We're not seeing it as often anymore. Zero's going for Sands of Time for his mid lane. Persephone and Baronic going back towards the Conduit gem that just recently got buffed.
Yeah, it almost feels like Vampiric Shroud is entirely a soul lane item in recent weeks. It's just generally the Guardians over there picking that up for a little bit of additional sustain, a little bit of additional power. Has decent level up options into the Blood-Soaked Cal, giving you some protections inside of the late game as well. So SOT is going to be the one picking up the Vampiric Shroud for himself this time around, but so far neither team playing aggressive on the map, and with this slower pace you have to evaluate which squad is going to generally like that more, and inside of the late game I think I'm with the desk on that. I really do favor this Solar Scarabs draft, just the ability to CC and set up for these Ragnaroks from Scream. Baronic has that one button win condition that Hurry Wind is so known for. I mean, 40 minutes in, you get hit through by through space and time, you're probably just dead, regardless of who you are, barring maybe Ducky or Johnny inside of the late game. But the Valhalla Valkyries, as Aggro did highlight, has the ability to run away with this game in the early. And Johnny has to be the one pushing that charge if they do want to find that early lead. Just heads back to base, picks up Icavale. That's a massive power spike for this Osiris. I think he could start to rotate in these lanes and make his stamp known.
And Baronic did manage to get his Giannis band away from him in the match against the Bolts because of the play that they pulled where they snuck a Hail Mary Fire Giant, got it, used that through space and time, were able to make a nice and swift retreat, didn't lose anybody for it, and was able to make a nice power play to inevitably win them that game. So it's almost a little shocking seeing Baronic able to just get this Giannis so easily. We saw the Raijin was banned away in its place where I would have expected to have seen the Giannis. Well, I guess the Scarabs banned the Raijin, that way they could pick up the Giannis for themselves for it. So Valkyries maybe not doing quite the homework for it to see, and this Giannis has been a slippery target for anybody who's been piloting it.
But there's just so many good mages right now.
It really
Raijin, Giannis, Umoja, Persephone, all that stuff, but it's Johnny caught out inside the jungle taking a lot of damage.
Stuck by the hammer from inbound. He'll have to use Lord of the Afterlife to get back over the wall as 4 members of the Scarabs rotated to the back Harpy camps of the Valhalla Valkyries territory to try and get a kill against Johnny, but Johnny having that ultimate, able to get over the wall, didn't even expend his beads for it either.
J-Mac, did I say Umoja while I was listing sick
I think
mage?
you did.
You gotta call me out when I make mistakes like that,
man. She's a sick mage.
Yeah, she's not. She does a lot
build
of damage.
full power Umoja in all of your games. Do it. Don't do it on my team.
Yeah, all right. Look, but the point still stands. There's just so many meta mages right now that it's hard to prioritize a ban towards something like Giannis. You have to deal with the Persephones, the Morgan Le Fays. Maybe I say Umoja again for the bit. I won't. But there's so much out there that I think it makes sense that Baronic is now starting to lean more so back into this Giannis playstyle that he was really doing well with at the beginning of Season 8. There was a little stretch there where the majority of the SPL was saying, We can't let him have it. He's too good on this pick. It's almost reminiscent of seeing Hurricane on it, but maybe like Hurricane Light. But now, as mid laners have only continued to get stronger, well, Yanis makes his way through some of these P's and B's.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking of magical damage dealers with it. Yumoja being magical
Oh,
guardian.
of course, yeah.
She does damage. It's
Oh, yeah,
magical
Freya.
damage that she does. Yeah, Freya. Yeah. Let's throw Ymir in the pot for it. Why not? As the teams start slowing down their pace, we start seeing the Scarabs making a group around this left side, and Valhalla Valkyries in tow along with it. It'll be Rapper and Johnny looking to steal away these Oracle Heartbeats so they can have that vision, but Inbound managed to sneak one of them away from it, so no vision control goes for either teams. Instead, it'll be a swift retreat from the Scarabs as they make their way back towards mid and try and keep themselves in this matchup. Veronic not getting a huge experience lead like we see, but Johnny gets caught out from the Ragnarok, or from the Unchained, immediately has to leap away, gets the Dragon Form and Veronic's ultimate chasing him down. SOT has even made a rotation towards this side of the map. They're able to pick up Johnny, and it looks like they'll grab Zeros as well, as Inbound is the one who gets the credit for that kill.
2 for 0 in favor of the Solar Scarabs. Phenomenal rotation from SOT, changes that engagement and flips it on his head. Where's Ducky? Where's the other Soul Laner? Well, he's still inside of the short lane, maybe a little bit too late on his rotation. Gold Fury burning very fast.
Emil and Raph are here to try and potentially steal this one away, but it looks like they'll just set their sights towards Emil instead, and he had 100% health, and then he had nothing as soon as all 5 turned, but they've all taken maybe just a little too much damage, and now with Ducky rotating over, the Scarabs, they get their kills, but they're not able to take that Gold Fury.
Yeah, Ducky finally does make his rotation over just in time to make sure that neutral objective doesn't go down, but the damage has been done, J-Mac. 2,000 gold in favor of the Chaos team already, and a lot of that gold finds its way towards the Soul Laner SOT, who picks up 2 kills inside of that engagement. Massive power spike as well. Already has the Breastplate of Valor as well as the helmet done, meaning that he's essentially unkillable. Johnny's going to have to work very, very hard to find that kill. Ducky as well isn't going to be dealing a lot of damage. I mean, there's Excavate. Where's the damage? SOT heals it up passively.
SOT is not worried at all about the damage that could come from either of these physical warriors for themselves. Johnny rotates over, it's going to be the same thing. You're looking at double physical protection out of SOT, plus a nice little bit of damage coming from that plate helm. Quite a bit of damage actually stacked on that item. So not only will SOT not take a lot of damage, he'll be able to deal a lot of damage right back. Rapper and Emil trying to go for a purple buff steal and try and strip this one away from Stewart, and they will be successful in doing so. Inbound a little late on his rotation to try and stop them.
Inbound's maybe they can get aggressive here, but it's Ducky who's being aggressed on the opposite side.
Ducky's not quite as tanky as SOT, and he's got to deal with both forms of damage. Get a nice driving strike will push Scream away, but he's walking away from his own tower, and SOT with the Ghastly Breath, more than enough damage to take down Ducky.
Solar Scarabs off to a roaring start. Johnny trying to make something happen on the opposite side.
Looking for Stewart. He's got the horse to walk away as fast as possible. Veronic has rotated over to save his mid laner. Johnny manages to walk out of the walls, but that's going to be it for it as Rapper is able to get him back to safety with those walls. So, Inbound Stewart not able to collapse and get that kill. Nice rotation from Veronic, but stopped end extracts from this Umoja.
First 7 minutes of this game was pretty slow. Seems like the ceasefire ends there. In the last 3 minutes, we picked up 4 kills, all going the way of the Chaos team. And the leads haven't really shaken out as I had expected. I thought we'd see a little bit more insofar as experience. Emilito, though, picks up Stewart.
Stewart just walked back into lane. Yeah, you've got your support there with you, but you had, like, what, a quarter health available? I'm not sure why you decided to walk back through, and Emilito decides to take the aggressive power play option and just runs at Stewart, getting him with the Gallarhorn, and then take him down. I don't even think he got the damage from the ultimate, just needed the one basic after to finish the job.
Stewart playing a little bit disrespectfully there. That's the only way I can think of it. Says, no way Emilito is going to step up to me, and, well, he does, and that's going to put a big kibosh to the power spike that Stewart's looking for. Immediately going into that rage tree. Means that it's going to be a little while until he gets that crit online. Short sword, not a very good stat pickup. It doesn't have great stats in its own right. Doesn't even have the 5% crit that it once did. Now, only just for the power. Means that Emilito is much more valuable inside of a team fight at this point. He's got AoE damage thanks to Odysseus' bow. Already has 40% more attack speed than Stewart does as well. I think that Emilito could be a win condition for the Valhalla Valkyries if they can fight around him and maybe transition his lead to a Gold Fury.
We saw SOT rotate over towards mid and try to get aggressive around the red buff, and as tanky as he was physically, he took one ability from Zeros and realized, Oh yeah, magic defense. That might be a good idea against this Persephone, is already 2 big damage items online for zeros between that Divine Ruin and that Charon's Coin. Well, no magical protection, SOT. He took almost half of his health just from 1 shot from this Persephone.
Void Stone seems to be the answer, though, so as soon as he's got that stacked up, better think he's going to start rotating to these team fights as well. But keep your eye on Scream. Looks like he doesn't want Ducky to get too comfortable inside of this lane, at least stripping away one of his camps, but I don't know, that damage output from SOT is pretty chunky, so the Solar Scarab is going to utilize his pressure to look at the Pyro.
Immediately they'll rotate 3 towards it. Even SOT will now make his way over, but as soon as they go to the Pyromancer, a quick response from the Valkyries, they head towards the Gold Fury, and no one's on this side of the map just yet, but they got Baronic with that through space and time to immediately dive in. Rapper uses the walls, but immediately they turn away from the Gold Fury and look towards Baronic and inbound. Baronic taking a ton of damage from Johnny, but Johnny also losing about half his health. Ultimate comes out from zeros, but immediately inbound will use the beads to get away.
It's inbound to Baronic, dropped low inside his engagement. Valhalla Valkyries now falling back and utilize the healing from Raffer if they want to keep this pressure up. That was an expensive fight for the Valkyries, though. 4 ultimates down, so that spells the end of it. Ducky makes his rotation over towards mid, but again, not there in time to have it really amount to much. And SOT, you were talking about that damage he takes from Persephone a little bit earlier. There it is again, losing out on 30% off of just 1 touch. All that said, Solar Scarabs with the rotation are at least able to stop the Valkyries from doing the Gold Fury, and in the meanwhile, we're able to pick up a Pyromancer for themselves. This gold lead has been cut a fair bit. We were approaching the 2K point just a couple moments ago, but now it's closer to that 1.6K in favor of the Solar Scarabs. That said, I don't know, man. Their composition in the late game going to be very good at taking down these objectives, and now that they're desynced, Pyro and Gold Fury, Coerce on Scream, plus Stewart with Heavenly Banner to boost your team as well, I think this Gold Fury would burn pretty fast.
And even though we saw 4 ultimates expended for the Valkyries, they took 3 relics in tow with it, looking for Raffer or the Scarabs. He'll get through a Riptide, and that's the one tricky part of trying to lock down Imoja. She's got a decent amount of CC into her kit, but that Riptide, more than anything, is so difficult to chase into. Not only do you get knocked around all over the place, but you're slowed after walking through it, where they get a movement speed, and they also bounce a lot further. But Scream doesn't care about that. He'll look for Johnny instead, pulling him to back with no beads available. Johnny still looking rather healthy. It's now Stewart and Scream who are in a little bit of danger. Ducky drops the boulder, and Stewart is down to such low health. He's got to run away with the horse, trying to run as far as he can, but Johnny will blink in and hit him with the sickle to take him down. That's 1 for the Valkyries, and maybe looking for a second as inbound gets pulled back in.
Inbound dropped low, but Johnny's lower, using the ultimate, the Lord of the Afterlife, to chase it out, but does not connect.
The walls from Rapper make sure SOT can't find him. Baronic is on the chase, looking for Johnny now, down to a 1/4 health, but he'll juke around the unstable vortex. Baronic wasn't able to connect the damage, and now Johnny is turning it back around. Portal is dropped, but he's not going to make it through. Rapper and Johnny cut him off and take him down.
Meanwhile, in the back, Ducky finally makes his stamp known in this fight, zoning off 3 members. Inbound and Scream have to be basebound at that HP. Valhalla Valkyries, though, having lost their ADC in trade, also lose their ability to go for the Gold Fury on the tail end. Rapper a little bit saucy on the map with the Salt Shaker emote, letting the Scarabs know that we're not easy to take down. The Valhalla Valkyries certainly got some fight in them left.
All right, I've seen a couple of supports do this in some of the ranked games, but this Stone of Fall start from Raffer coming through. I believe I actually watched Inbound pick this up a couple of times last night watching some of his matchups. Stone of Fall, what's so good about this item here?
A little bit of power, some survivability. It's generally an incredibly strong stat stick, and every single time you hit that basic attack, you're going to gain a stat. 3% damage mitigation means you're probably surviving for a pretty long time inside of these fights, and Raffer in particular is going to be auto-attacking a good deal considering he is Imoja. Those ranged autos very easy to apply. Gold Fury, though, is started up by the Scarabs. They're willing to take this fight yet again.
Gold Fury already down to half health with all 5 members of the Valkyries here. No one will get there in time. Emil was the closest on the map, but he was dealing with a dewarding problem for himself instead. So it's to be the Solar Scarabs who get the first major neutral objective. Pyromancer was taken earlier, and that does stagger the cooldowns for those 2 objectives. You can see Solar Scarabs are starting to posture up and get ready to start attacking that side of the map.
It's Ducky walking into 2 members of the Scarabs on one side, and Raffer doing the exact same thing on the left. Both nearly unkillable at this point. Ducky would take a concentrated effort of more than just SOT and Scream to take down, and it seems like Ducky, privy to it, is just trying to be as annoying as he can inside of the jungle. but he's not able to do much. There's not anything to steal back there, barring these small camps. Instead, he's just trying to slow down this farm from Scream.
And just as easily as Scream was down to half health because of that Bumba's Dagger, able to get a nice chunk of it back when those back Harpy camps got taken, so there was no further chance for Ducky to take down the jungler. Instead, the Valhalla Valkyries turn their sights towards the Draugr, making sure that Emily 2 can pick that one up.
Goodness.
Ducky goes for a blue buff invade, but is unsuccessful in stripping that one away from SOT. As Ducky now has to run because Scream has come back from the fountain, is looking for a fight, but Leap isn't there from Scream and Selby through space and time, and a Ragnarok to try and chase him down. They're expending a lot just to try and find Ducky. They get his purification beads away, and the Riptide from Rapper will try and zone him out, but a double leap in from Scream is going to get a huge stun against the two of them as we wait for the fight to break through to see if Ducky is able to make it out of this.
Considering Rapper is so close by, you better believe that there should be a team fight on the tail end of this one, but it almost feels like one of those freeze frames. How did I get here? I couldn't tell you which one of these teams is going to come out ahead inside of this engagement, but you better believe that whichever team does is going to go to the Pyromancer immediately afterwards. So far, it has been an expensive commitment by the Solar Scarabs using Ragnarok and a lot of other abilities trying to chase out this Herc.
Yeah, they're just trying to do anything they can. They do manage to take down Ducky and Johnny in the process of the fight. Inbound leaping forward, gets a stun against Emilito, and SOT puts him in the dirt with the paralyzing spin. Yeah, it did more than paralyze him, it actually puts him in the grave, and Rapper on the run. Gets a stun against SOT, but a quick beads from the Cerberus will make sure that he does not get stunned away. Instead, it'll be a triple kill for Solar Troll.
Little three-piece for the three-headed dog here. Meanwhile, Pyromancer, you're right to say it, is incredibly risky. Maybe less so now that Stewart has started to rotate his way in. Should spell the end of that neutral objective. Only trading out Baronic are the Solar Scarabs and able to pick up a ton of kills onto the Valhalla Valkyries. Raffer and Emilito still dead for another 10 seconds. Meanwhile, though, the Valkyries were able to get a little bit of pressure on the map. Tier 1 tower and mid for the Scarabs is starting to drop low.
Zero's sitting level 17. Does manage to have a little bit of a lead over Baronic for the time being, even inbound. Starting to fall a little bit behind compared to Rapper. So despite the big fight that the Scarabs are able to win in the jungle, there is still some experience deficit from some of their other players. However, we're looking and talking about experience deficits and big gaps and leads. SOT 4 levels up over Ducky.
That is too many levels for any individual player to be up over their contemporaries, and SOT finds himself in a position now where he can start looking at just damage, and I wouldn't argue against it. Ducky, again, being aggressed on by Scream.
Scream will pick him up, throw him back through space and time.
Almost.
Won't connect, but at least get Baronic towards that side of the map looking for Ducky. Driving Strike is good. Inbound is even here. They are really... I don't know what Ducky said to the Scarabs before this game, but they are not happy about it. Rotating all 4 players that aren't SOT towards that side of the map to take him down, but now looking towards Fire Giant.
It's an immediate dragon transformation from inbound, and that coerce is going to tick true. SOT acting as goaltender finds Zeros, and good luck walking past them.
But Rapper and Johnny are in tow on the backside. Zeros will fall down instantly. As soon as he had the opportunity to try and fight, he was already dead. But Johnny and Rapper are here. Fire Giant not leashed. Rapper drops the ultimate looking for it, but it's a reset from the Scarabs. They reset and take down Johnny instead. 3 away from the Valkyries, and now the Scarabs turning their sights towards Rapper, or at least back towards the Fire Giant. Inbound de-transforms inside the pit, and 4 of them are still here. Rapper still has potential to steal this, but the ultimate from SOT may have just sealed their fate as the Solar Scarabs do pick up Fire Giant, and 1 more kill to boot.
Emilito elects not to rotate into the death pit that is Fire Giant like the rest of his team, and instead goes for the Tier 2 tower on left, successful in taking both the Tier 1 and Tier 2, so a slight infusion of gold as reflected on the charts, but 4 of your teammates dying might get rid of that benefit. Solar Scarabs now with Fire Giant on 5 members and plenty of towers left to collect, as well as an Oni Fury spawning in the very near future. Gotta think this is some of that winning pace for him from here on out. Valhalla Valkyries do not have a weak defense, however. If they are able to utilize Ducky inside of these team fights to isolate singular members, even tanks, from the Solar Scarabs, pulling them into these Tier 2s or potentially the Phoenix, if that's where they elect to defend, they've got phenomenal lockdown, the Valhalla Valkyries, be it Raffer's Riptides or Emilito's ultimate, even the grasp of death from Zeros can just lock just about anyone down, or maybe Emilito loses out on that ultimate a little bit before the fight, and the Solar Scarabs take away one of those threats on the map.
Problem for the Valhalla Valkyries right now is the tanks on the flip side for the Scarabs are either nigh unkillable via inbound with the heavy defense he's locked in, or probably deal more damage than the actual carries for the Scarabs. SOT 9-0-3 finishes an Ethereal Staff for his final item and is sitting comfortably at the top of the charts of 13,000 damage. The closest one to him is his jungler Scream, who's been getting a lot of nice double or triple unchains throughout these fights. But, I mean, even his next highest carry in damage dealing is almost 6,000 behind him.
That is a yikes situation. Poor Scream, by the way, sitting at 1-0-10, 10 assists, only 1 kill, and second highest on the damage charts. Gotta think someone's been taking it away from him. So our Scarabs, though, certainly happy with the pace, are able to strip away the tier 2 on left, the Oni Fury, the tier 2 in mid, and seems like there's no resistance.
SOT peeks over the wall just to see what's going on, and Ducky opens the door to let him in and let him have a little bit of damage in the process. But SOT, nice and tanky, he'll be able to retreat back and regroup with the Scarabs. Fire Giants still around their waist for about another 2 minutes, and they still have plenty of options available for them. They can take the final tier 2 tower off the map. They've already stripped the Fury away just previously throughout all of that, and then they've got the 3 Phoenixes that they have to deal with.
SOT does at least lose out on his speed, so if he does try to get saucy again, Valhalla Valkyries might be able to punish him. This time around, Oni Fury waves now starting to work their way through the entirety of the map, and only one tower stands between the Scarabs and the exposed birds of the Valhalla Valkyries. We talked about the siege defense, so why not talk about the merits of the Solar Scarab siege? And it's pretty strong, and it's not necessarily because of the composition. It might just be the lead. It might just be the Fire Giant on all 5 members. It might just be the Dragon form Coerce on the entirety of the team.
Veronica will rotate in, and their next objective is going to be this mid lane. Phoenix, they'll dive into it, instantly Scream in the backline, finds Emilitu's beads, off immediately with the Ragnarok, and Raffer will now be the goaltender for them. His ultimate is down as well, though, and the Solar Scarabs continuing to push into this Phoenix. Raffer is very low. The Scarabs get the Phoenix as their prize, and looks like they're comfortable with walking away with just that.
It is not comfortable for Ducky, though, who looks for the re-engage. Blink in, finds nobody with the pull on the Solar Scarabs. They've got bigger fish to fry. Right side already being pushed by the minions. Might as well pick up that tier 2, fall back to the Pyro, back and buy, and head over to Fire.
Bronic still has his ult as well as Stewart. Ducky goes for the push against SOT, but ends up missing and maybe walking into his own death trap. Inbound, dives against Emily2, doesn't his beats, and through space and time, eliminates him. Bronic with a huge pick from there. Johnny used the Lord of the Afterlife, but Scream will chase him down with a Brutalize and take another one off the board. Now it's just Rapper and Ducky to run, as they are going to be the main defense here. Zeros is available for him. Ragnarok comes up, and just in time to take Rapper down.
Shame on me for calling for the back and buy. Had not taken into account that the Valhalla Valkyries liked that tier 2 tower more than they liked their own Phoenix. A harder defense put up there, and a harder punish by the Solar Scarabs.
Slow start from the Scarabs, but nothing shy of a quick end for it. It was 7 minutes and nothing was going on, but now they're looking for a 24-minute end. I say that, but Zeros is able to put down one. SOT caught inside the ultimate, but Zeros doesn't have enough damage to take down all 5 members of the Scarabs. The Scarabs will be able to take game number 1.
A convincing win, nonetheless. That was early rotations from SOT over to Gold Fury fights. That was early rotations from Scream. I think the Solo and Jungle combined were like at 11-1 towards the end of that game. Ridiculous slash lines across the board. Just felt like the Valhalla Valkyries couldn't figure out where they wanted to root their aggression or really get their aggression started.
Yeah, it was a rough, rocky patch for the Valkyries in game number 1. We'll see if they can turn it around for game number 2. We'll come back after the break to the desk.
Welcome back, everybody. If you want to get your hands on the best Smite gear that you can get, of course, all of our exclusive Smite gear for the Smite Pro League here in Season 8, shop.smiteproleague.com is the place to go for that. Thanks again to Inside Apparel for being our exclusive apparel sponsor here for Season 8. Again, shop.smiteproleague.com is the place to go. Get your favorite team gear, your general SPL merch, all that kind of good stuff can be found right there. Taco, talking about Game 1 now between the Scarabs and the Valkyries. International Dog Day was earlier on this week, and it seems like Solar Troll was still in the celebration mindset here on the Cerberus.
Without a doubt, and we call Cerberus one of the best doggos of the league for a reason, and SOT certainly living up to the standards that you would expect after such a celebratory holiday. And realistically speaking, Aggro, it did not leave the Valhalla Valkyries a whole lot of recovery options. The Cerberus just got off to a tear early on, continued his rampage in the mid-game, and, well, never really even had a chance to approach that late-game aspect.
I mean, the CC that we talked about for this draft for the Scarabs really came up to pass. Really difficult for the Valkyries to be able to fight in when there's that much CC, specifically from a Guardian coming out of the solo lane, who had a lot of kills early, got really ahead, and finished 10-0-6. Also worth noting that the 2 dogs in the game go undying. So that's really celebrating the holiday properly.
I think that says a lot, honestly. A little bit of a preview, that sneak peek of the Scream show. You did kind of hype him up, Aggro. I'm not gonna lie, with him doing something crazy here. And
yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw him under the bus,
really all that crazy, though.
No, let me throw him under the bus, actually, because he has a very good game. 2-0 and 11, I think it was, 15,000 damage. But he told me last night that he was going to build full damage, that he was sick of all this hybrid build nonsense. My man's bought Mystical Mail this game.
Yeah, that's
not what happened.
That's not full damage.
That's not full damage at all.
That's some damage.
Look, at the end of the day, a win is a win, and he played really well and took a lot of damage and dealt a lot of damage, but he built defense.
Like a coward.
He told me he wouldn't. That's all I'm saying. He did lead the game in structure damage, though.
But he's still a coward.
I would.
By technicalities, I mean, I don't think there's really any other way around it. If we're going to say you're going to build full damage, you got to build full damage.
Well, he only told me, and maybe I wasn't supposed to say it, but I did, and here we are. So that's all there is to it. Maybe Game 2 will be the spot where Scream's going to be able to turn it around and build some full damage. But look, if he's going 2-0-11, putting out that much damage, I'm telling him to keep building what he's building because it's clearly working. Yeah,
without a doubt. I think, if anything, this is going to kind of force the Valhalla Valkyries to maybe shift some of that focus away from that Umoja prioritization that we saw them opting for, and maybe start to take a page out of the Scarabs draft here, because Cerberus looked incredibly dominant there for SOT. It complemented everything that the Scarabs wanted to do throughout this match. Objective gameplay early on was very difficult, I think, for the likes of Johnny, especially on that Gilgamesh. Didn't really seem as though he had a whole lot of space to operate with, and I get it. Gilgamesh definitely, I think, more of a frontlining aspect known in that jungle role position, but on that same note, he can't do it all alone, and I think that was more so the issue, is that the Valhalla Valkyries just seemingly struggled to try and get any sort of damage really going in a response. And even when they found there was a nice pick punish that we actually saw between Zeros and Johnny near that Gold Fury pit, where Baronic tries to hunt down this Gilgamesh when he's sitting at around 25-30% HP. They turn on him, and it amounted to literally nothing. And I think that's been a huge reoccurring problem for the Valhalla Valkyries, is even when they're able to find picks, they're not really able to generate it into more so after the fact.
The stuff after the stuff, as it has been famously said before. Certainly one of the key aspects of competitive Smite. The Valkyries, though, I mean, you go up against the Scarabs. They come out with that fire behind them, as we kind of expected, knowing how this set turned out last time. Now you've got to go back to the drawing board here. Ends up being fairly difficult when I think that they got a draft that they were probably fairly happy with.
I don't think that it was exclusively issues with the composition. Again, I think it was more so just the fact that the Solar Scarabs were just able to generate much easier early game aggression through that Cerberus, and that's one of the main reasons why I bring it up as something that Valks might want to take away.
We'll see what happens here in game number 2, as picks and bans are ready between the Scarabs and the Valhalla Valkyries. Seems like the Valkyries have chosen to stay in that first pick position, just as they were last time around. And they led off by banning 2 of the premier backliners that you would expect to see coming out of your first pick slots in Artemis and Tiamat. Maybe those gods staying open and at least forcing the Scarabs to ban them might be the call.
Well, Artemis, that's going to be a reoccurring ban out for the Valhalla Valkyries. They don't seem as though they really want Emilito to be prioritizing this Artemis, and it is tough to take Artemis early on in a draft, but in that second pick position, she could definitely make for a nice secondary pick as a response. So I understand. I could definitely respect that. Tiamat ban as well. I think that's more so to do with the fact that Zero's maybe not feeling as comfortable trying to pilot the likes of a Tiamat from ping. If this is a Zero's on land, I guarantee we see him jumping at the opportunity to play that Tiamat.
Interesting as it is Gilgamesh ban here by the Solar Scarabs, still focusing in particular on that front line. Maybe that's the call, as the Valkyries end up deciding that they've had enough of the Solar Patrol Cerberus, and for good reason, as we saw in game number 1. So it ends up being a slight change in the bans here from the Valkyries, whereas the Scarabs still stick with that same sort of mentality, Raijin off the board, and a couple of frontliners as well.
Yeah, also, you know what's fun about Gilgamesh and Osiris? I don't know why, but because we've been seeing so much of both of them lately, I completely mixed up in that breakdown, you know. I was talking about Johnny. He was still at 25-30% HP Osiris, though. That's besides
a warrior
the fact.
with low HP.
A warrior with low HP is getting chased by Giannis. Cue the Benny Hill theme music. The fact that Veronic dies in the process, I think that's something that, you know, Solar Scarabs, they had a couple of kinks along the way, but for the most part, were able to smooth things over for that Game 1 victory. Still, Yamoja locked in place, first and outright for the Valhalla Valkyries, so doesn't seem as though they felt like the emoji was really much of an issue. Have to agree with them. I think it was more so just the fact that if you're going to take the emoji, then when you look for those team fights, you've got to make sure that you get that forced separation in my mind, and didn't really get a chance to see a whole lot of that, and I think part of it was due to the fact that Scarabs, they just had this Giannis, Baronic, get out of jail free card, essentially.
And he gets it once again, top 2 for the mid laner, but this time the Valkyries are going to top 2 a mage, and it is that hell. Remember, this was banned in the bottom 2 by the Solar Scarabs in game 1. We've seen the Kings take this to variety the vast majority of the time. We've seen other teams give it to their mid laners. Where do you expect this to be going for the Valks?
Well, for starters, I think that as far as Zeros is concerned, I would probably rather see the Hell in mid, just because Hell does have a lot of burst damage early on. Could be a strong way to negate the effects of this Giannis in that mid to late game. Punish him early, suppress him, prevent him from really hitting that steep mobility point, and Osiris, again, something that can further complement a mage with a lot of burst damage. And I also like the idea of the cleanse. I think that right now Fafnir doesn't exactly scream all the crowd control in the world. I think that you can definitely alleviate some of that pressure through that Hell cleanse. And if anything, even if this isn't intended for the mid lane here for Zeros, I think at the very least, leaving it as vague as it is still puts a little bit more pressure onto the Scarabs in terms of, do we want to ban more mages, or do we need to look towards solo?
It's a good point. Yeah, I think so too. Leave it a little bit ambiguous and make the Scarabs guess what you're going to do. As it is Heimdall this time around for Stewart, this was picked top 3 by the Valkyries in game 1. Kept it out of his hands. Now he gets his hands back on it. Up against that Yamoja, getting that extra bit of safety against River's Rebuke always feels good.
Also, just taking out that Heim in general, I have to remember the Valks prioritized this in game 1, but this time around, like I said, if they want to make this Hell the mage, the premier mage, then good looks. I don't think that it's outright a bad choice option. If anything, kind of excited to see how Zeros would choose to play this god, because right now I think the most outstanding performances, in my memory at least, are definitely stemming from his Raijin debuts, and I think that Hell, while she's not Raijin by any means, again, it's really just all about the burst, and I just prefer to see the Valhalla Valkyries try to lean a little bit more into that early game, because I feel if they can get a lead in the early, that's going to help them a lot more around the objective play.
Getting ahead certainly can cover up some of those mistakes later on that we've seen at times, as it is some split bans here by the Scarabs. They don't know exactly where it's going, so they make sure they get some value either way, with Ram and Wukong taken off the board. And then Fenrir, Saket, 2 CC heavy gods out of the jungle. That seems like what the Solar Scarabs have liked for Scream recently, so it makes some sense as to why the Valkyries decide to go that direction. And that leaves Solar Troll and Scream, that right side of the map that really dominated in game 1, as the two players who still need picks here for the Scarabs.
Well, as far as Guardians are concerned, I think that Terra still up for grabs here. Could be a strong frontlining asset for the likes of the Solar Scarab. Seems as though they're toying around with the idea of this Bacchus. Have to imagine it's for that Belch ability because of the anti-heal options, and not really a whole lot of anti-heal options left if that's the immediate response that the Solar Scarabs are trying to accomplish here. If they do believe that this hell is intended for zeros, well, what better way to deal with it than by introducing a lot of dive, and who better to dive than Thor?
Thor, plenty of it, and you know that both Scream and Solar Troll love this pick, so still some ambiguity in the draft, though pretty late for the Scarabs, won't get ban value out of it. And it's neat for the Valkyries, we've seen this go mid, but with a Hunter spot open, I think it might not be going that way as Kronos gets locked in. So now, I'm looking at this draft, it looks to me like Neath mid, Kronos ADC, and it is going to be Ducky on the Hell.
It is indeed. I would be hard-pressed to believe that it's not going to be Emilito piloting this Kronos. However, Aggro, I think the concern now becomes, well, you had the Emoja in Game 1. You weren't able to really accomplish a whole lot in terms of controlling the back line or the front line, really, so that team fight separation, pretty much a non-factor because of all the front line assets that the Solar Scarabs had in their favor, and looks as though this Thor is going to be intended for solo or troll as well in that solo lane, and Thor against Hell, I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards the Thor there.
Yeah, I agree. I apologize that during that I had to button up. I didn't realize it was so serious that Scream was going to be pulling out the Bastet. What happened, man? I mean, they dominate Game 1.
And he did say full damage.
He did say full damage, and Bastet certainly does that well. I had to get a little bit more proper up in here because I didn't realize that Scream was pulling out all the stops. He was not messing around, it turns out, as he's claimed many times. Bastet in the jungle. No one should pick this god save for Lucas Bracklin, right? Like, that's where we're at.
The OG Bastet player, I think.
The Bastet player.
He's the first one that really comes to mind more than
100%.
anybody else as far as Bastet players are concerned, or successful Bastet players are concerned is a better way to put it. But I also really like the fact that when you're thinking about anti-heal, sure, you might not have any direct ability anti-heal, but the itemization choices that the Solar Scarabs could opt for, looking largely at the beat sticks, even Divine Ruin, I think, is fairly applicable here between Giannis and Fafnir. Could potentially even look to build it. I think I would prefer it on Fafnir over the Giannis, if anything, and it kind of fills that slot where we typically would see like the Spear of Deso. Maybe we get both, who knows? But as far as I'm concerned, Bastet is just going to be solely harassing this Hell, and I can only imagine how difficult it's going to be for a Hell to actually do Hell things like sustain her backline alongside of that Emoja when she's just being griefed by the Thor Bastet.
Love the Bastet up against the Hell. She's good against CC Hell, but ends up not being able to deal with damage that often, and Bastet has plenty of that. We'll see if Scream's Bastet can bring us the 2-0 victory or if the Valks can bounce back.
Man, the Scarabs were not happy about losing the last set to the Valks, and it seems that Scream wasn't satisfied with only going, 2-0-11 in his last performance, so now he decides, all right, we're going full damage, we're pulling everything out, and goes towards the Bastet, first time seeing it in the SPL, and for all rights, as Aggro was talking about on the desk, it's probably not a god that really many people at all should be playing, aside, who'd he miss?
Emilito missed, the red buff.
Oh, okay. He did. I thought you were gonna go, because I saw when Aggro was talking about, only Scream should be playing. I saw you making some motions like.
Oh, my Bastet is sick. If that's what you're trying to get out of me, and I will talk about it. Aggro is laughing, but it's PTSD laughs for me absolutely fragging his Raijin on the box stage with my Bastet. But you know what the desk forgot to mention? Bastet's not just good into Ducky on this Hell, but kind of frags Emilito on the Kronos. I mean, I don't care how much your rewind does if you're going to get pounced for 1,500 in the late game.
Yeah, you've got a little bit of a time frame there that you have to use to get that rewind, where you're sitting still for a little bit, and then you'll finally be able to go through. But if Scream is able to throw a metric ton of damage back at you before you can even have the opportunity to do so, kind of makes that rewind null and void. Zeros in the mid lane also very susceptible to it, just because that backflip's so telegraphed, so they can be able to chase him down. They're looking for a chase against Johnny, who's walked a little far forward against Baronic. An inbound Scream leaps over the wall, beads out of Johnny, and Scream still looking for the chase, gets the lash for some big damage against Johnny, but Johnny gets a nice riptide from Raffer, able to get away, but it looks like he's trying to turn back to fight because now Zeros has rotated back over to try and support him.
Disarm from inbound is good, but
Johnny,
the damage better.
Not going to make it out of here. Stewart rotates through. It is a 4v4 fight by the Gold Fury, but Stewart's the one who comes out with the benefits. 2-0 for first blood for the Hunter, and they may still be looking for more. Zeros has to run away from inbound all the way back at his red buff this early in the game.
But it's Stewart versus Emilito, and Emilito doesn't realize that Scream doesn't care about the honorable 1v1.
Emilito loses out on the beads and maybe losing his life as well. One more basic is all that Stewart needed, but he misses, and Emil able to just barely make it out, but not without losing out of the beads. Johnny lost his in the fight previously. Let's just say the Scarabs are looking to scrap right away.
So what happened in Game 1? Valhalla Valkyries got blown out of the water in the early game, so in Game 2, the adaptation is drafting for a composition that's going to pop off at the 50-minute mark when you've got Kronos and Hell just really starting to hit their stride. Seems like the Solar Scarabs privy to that, or maybe not even privy to that, as they haven't really changed their strategy here. They're just trying to jam it down in the early. Might be looking to avoid that situation early. 2-0 for the Solar Scarabs, and that's them just under 1,000 gold in the lead, and that is a pretty hefty sum at this point in the game. I mean, what was this, like the third wave to start working its way through the lanes? Yeah, this is a fast pace.
And the fact that Stewart got the double kill amidst that means he's going to hit that level 5 before Emil, and well, that rewind's not going to save you when you're flying through the realms at any given time for it. Johnny looking to make some strides over towards solo lane, where SOT has gone for this Thor solo one more time. He was also the first one to bring it back previously in this phase, and going to be piloting it one more time. But in order to try and answer this early game that, well, the Scarabs want to run, they go for the double assassin to try and go up against this, well, squishier front line that's going to be coming from the Valkyries. With this Hell going to be from the solo lane, going to be a mage, and while you can put a lot of protections on a mage, at the end of the day, it is still a mage.
Well, she's pretty tanky. I mean, the build with effective HP coming from the healing as well means that she can almost act as a frontliner. She can certainly tank up a fair bit of damage, keep your team topped up as well. I think it's more interesting seeing SOT's itemization already, trying to strip away some of that magic power, maybe realizing that this Hell is going to be a little while until she starts building some power in her own right. Silver Breastplate seems to be the option here, immediately into a Breastplate of Valor. That's not any power, so Runic Shield going to go ahead and get rid of everything that he's getting from the Vampiric Shroud.
And then Leitu going towards Doomorb for a first item. We see this typically with Morrigan mids, where they like to rush it, get some extra zoomies for themselves. The now I'll patent, I joked about it with Taco yesterday, but I'm going to make it my official patent for it. It's when you buy the Zoomorb, it's you put on the zoomies to bring the doomies.
You're going to patent that?
Yes, I'm gonna go for the patent
and
for that.
And you're looking to like make money off that?
I don't know, maybe one day it'll pay off. I'll get maybe like 12 cents from it.
Okay, all right.
So
anytime
like
someone says it, you're going to get royalties.
Yeah, let's go for that.
How do you think anyone's going to say that?
Probably not. But hey, when they do, though,
they will have to pay you royalties.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
That's the way to go.
Hey, can I hear it one more time, please?
Put on the zoomies to bring the doomies.
And that's for when you purchase Doomorb.
Correct.
Cool. All right.
Gotcha.
Got that.
Yep.
So Icavale picked up by Stewart here, so he's going to have pretty decent trade potential in Emilito and Lane, who, again, as you said, going for the Doom Orb, going to be a little while until he starts to get those auto attacks ringing true. Maybe Telkine's Ring a little bit later on in the build, Demonic Grip for some penetration if he does want to go for that full auto attack style, but generally when we see Kronos in Season 8, it's more of that hybrid style where you go for a little bit of that ability base and then maybe one or two rings to help you out a little bit in these late game team fights.
And Baronic already getting a little bit of cooldown online as he's finished his Kronos pendant very early because of all of the fighting that's happened, able to put a couple of assists and get some nice extra bounty from those early skirmishes. So now he'll be able to fire those through space and times a little bit more often. SOT in a bit of danger as he gets hit by the World Weaver. Ducky, though without any damage online, he's not really hitting SOT for all that much.
No, SOT is taking no damage at this point. That Runic Shield putting in a lot of value for the Soul Laner so far. SOT, I think, doesn't really need to worry about the 1v1 too much. I mean, Zero's ultimate is just about more damage than an entire rotation of Ducky's abilities. Greater Scorpion scrapped over here, so the Gold Fury will be spawning up very soon, and as it stands, the duo lane for either team doesn't really have a lead. Maybe pressure should favor the Solar Scarabs, though, as they do have a standard Hunter.
Yeah, very weird to see that they're scrapping over the Greater Scorpion. Normally that's left for after the fighting is done elsewhere, and they can try and get some big fights. Emilitu takes a huge chunk of damage. Inbound goes in and immunes the stun with the Draconic transformation, looking for some big aggression. Manages to find Raffer, stuns him under the tower, but Stewart unwilling to dive alongside his support. Instead, they'll just force them back onto the tower, force damage against them, and now make their retreat back into the jungle.
All that pressure established by the Scarabs dual lane does force Johnny to start his rotation over to try and alleviate some of that. Walks about halfway, turns around, realizes that is the end of the fight. Scream, though, is trying to catch out the jungler.
Scream looking for Johnny. Johnny down to half health, uses Lord of the Afterlife over the wall through space and time from Baronic. Doesn't manage to find anybody, but does get him back to the lane faster and back towards the fight a little bit quicker. Inbound, going for the Bracer after it's seen its recent adjustments. Now it gives you a little bit more movement speed right off the bat for it, and then once you upgrade it, you do get a little bit more damage. I'll expect we'll see some more of this. PBM was kind of toying around with it before it got the buff, and now that it is buffed, we're seeing it a couple more times. And Imelitu caught inside the rivers. He'll use the rewind immediately to get back towards some form of safety, but there's no safety for him. He's stuck inside his own purple buff. Baronic low, Johnny looking for him, but Zero grabs him.
Johnny, Raffer, and Zero's trying to keep the chase up here. Solar Scarabs deep in enemy territory. Scream just now losing the ultimate stance means that his damage takes a major hit.
Inbound, able to make it away, has the leap available with Zeros and Raffer here. They're going to try and take them away. Zeros gets a root against Stewart, but Scream jumps in, forcing Zeros to backflip out. Raffer, Zeros, and Johnny all looking a little worse for wear. They'll all make their way back as soon as Raffer attempts to finish clearing out the wave. Needs a little bit of help, and luckily Johnny will be there to give it for him.
Ducky is able to steal away the blue buff from SOT, and SOT is forced to use the beads off of that Neath ultimate coming all the way from the left-hand side from Zeros. So Ducky is off to a pretty strong start here, has been left alone for the majority of this match so far. No junglers really starting to poke their head into the soul lane, and that leaves SOT slightly behind. That said, though, Ducky's his days are numbered, right? Well, the desk highlighted it already. Sure, she has a decent sustain, decent survivability, but doesn't really deal with all that damage too well. Sure, you can cleanse some CC. Bastet's not trying to CC you. The only CC she applies is death and a root.
And one root.
But mainly death.
Mostly death. That's the big one for it. And death is the best CC because they can't come back from that. Well, there's a respawn.
They literally do.
Well, yeah, there's a respawn timer, I guess, for that one. Man, this one kind of fell apart, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, I think we nailed it.
How much fun do you think SOT's having going against this hell by himself in solo lane as this Thor?
He was having a good deal until just very recently where he started to fall behind. I mean, there was that power spike where he had Runic Shield and it was just Vamp Shroud for Ducky before he'd backed for the Breastplate of Valor, and I'm sure SOT was feeling pretty good at that point, but now that he's starting to fall slightly behind, I'm sure he'd appreciate a slight rotation over from his team.
Instead, he decides to take matters in his own hand. He rotated over towards mid to get a little bit of poke against Zeros and immediately had to go back. Otherwise, he was going to lose a little too much experience towards that tower. Stucky was pushing the wave away. Stewart is going for an aggressive dive near the Tier 1 tower to try and take down Imelitu. Imelitu takes quite a bit, but the Rivers Rebuke comes out from Raffer and an escape option available for them. Inbound goes to the Con Transformation. Johnny looking a little worse for wear as he's trying to make a nice escape, but immediately through the Bifrost, Stewart will go just to get away from the fight. Baronic gets hit by the World Weaver ultimate, and that'll be more than enough as Ducky rotates over towards the Fury and picks him up.
Scream still hovering around the edge with that ultimate available, does tick off, so his damage, again, not going to be so good. Raffer, though, gets hit by SOT.
Raffer never went back to base, and he gets caught out for an SOT. His beads are down, so he'll get caught by the stun from Imelitu, and that'll be a double kill now for Ducky as they start setting up towards the Gold Fury. Inbound is here. A little bit low on the steal potential from this Fafnir, but it's not completely out of the question. The question is how much burn do the Valhalla Valkyries have? Instead, he'll use the hammer to try and take down Zeros, and Valkyries do manage to take that Fury.
I like that Inbound doesn't use his leap to try and steal that away. I mean, hammer, kind of a non-factor on steals just because it's just body blocked pretty easily. Could have potentially tried to use that leap to steal, but it's a high-risk play there, considering it's only 600 gold now in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries post Gold Fury. So the Solar Scarabs kind of hedging their bets, saying, all right, we're still pretty much, we still have decent control on the map. We can head over to the Pyromancer a little bit later on, try to alleviate some of this pressure from Ducky and maybe start to deal with this hell that is now 2 levels up on SOT. But maybe a little too late at that rate. Ducky now has Heavenly Sprint and beads available and defense as well. So Scream gonna have to work very hard to shut him down.
That Lotus Crown is going to give some big protections off the heels. Imelitu use the beads to get away from Through the Realms, but that's not going to save him from the damage that ensues after Inbound and Stewart team up to take down Imelitu, put him in the grayscale screen for just a little while longer, 20 seconds till he's back up.
Man, it's almost a complete inverse of last time we saw Stewart play against Cyclone. It was like kind of Cyclone jamming it down the lane, and now Stewart trying to pay it forward to the OG veteran Imelitu, and it's been working out. 4-0 is this Heimdall for the Solar Scarabs, and 0-2 is Emilito. But Kronos is a late game hyper carry, does not really do so well at this portion of the match. 11.5 minutes in, you can kind of expect that the 1v1 should likely go Stewart's way. It's how well Stewart is able to keep him down, and so far, they're doing a very good job of it.
Raffer saw some decent value out of the Stone of Fall last game, and it looks like Emilito thought that it looked pretty nice, and it looks like he may be building towards it himself to get a little bit of that extra tankiness, a little bit of that damage for it. And that damage mitigation, Solar Troll, he's going to need a little bit of help as he dunks away, gets hit by the sun on the tail end of the dunk, and looks like he'll be able to make it out fine. Raffer's looking towards him, but Emilito doesn't recognize the triple gank that's coming his way. Scream inbound, and Stewart will team up to try and find him. Rewind goes through. That's just going to throw him right back in the lane. And inbound was waiting for him on the tail end. Stun comes through, holds Scream in place, but inbound goes in for the transformation. Scream leaps under the tower. Inbound leaps in, and Emil, he's not going to make it out as the breath from inbound off that stun will be enough to take him down.
Is Scream maxing Pounce? That damage was crazy. Maybe 50% of Emilito's health bar off the jump alone. Just absolutely wild what Bastet is capable of doing, and that's before Transcendence is fully stacked. He's got a ton of CDR as well. Scream is going to be incredibly mobile inside of these team fights. His power scaling is very strong, and if he does go full damage, got to think this next item is either going to be like a Brawler's Beat Stick or even potentially a Titan's Bane for the raw penetration. Bastet is scaling incredibly hard.
Scream roots Johnny, gets the Lord of the Afterlife from him. Zeros misses the root from the Spirit Arrow, and Scream able to make it out because of it. Does manage to lose his beads in the process of the fight, trying to deal with Johnny and Zeros, but ends up making it out with his life. Transcendence now fully stacked up by Scream, as all the while after that kill they were able to strip away not just the red camp, but the purple buff was taken as well.
This pace so far though, J-Mac, despite being behind so much, twice as many deaths as they have kills so far for the Valhalla Valkyries, or maybe, no, I worded that right. It was awkward, but it was awkwardly worded. They've got more deaths than they have kills, but the pace is favoring them. Their late game team is going to be incredibly strong, and so far their pieces are doing very well, especially Ducky, who's still maintaining that lead. It is a 2-level deficit for Kronos inside of the long lane, but that's within the parameters of acceptable losses, I'd say. I mean, he's going to hit level 20 eventually regardless.
Pyromancer started, it's getting low, and Valhalla Valkyries will take it, but Inbound and Baronic are here to try and stop them. Hammer comes through and a dunk from SOT, but it's only on Raffer, and he's not the primary target for those teams as he's rather tanky. Drops the River's Rebuke just to give himself an escape option and allow Ducky to escape as well.
Scream, seeing if maybe he could isolate Zeros, but that is going to be the end of that engagement. Pyromancer does fall, and the Solar Scarabs looking to do a little bit more on the map. Tier 1 tower and mid, yeah, that's gone.
Inbound gets a hammer stun against Zeros, but Zeros holds onto the beads, recognizing there was no further follow-up. Raffer rotates back over. The top Zeros' health bar up with a nice heal, and Emilito all the while decides he's going to make his sight set towards a Tier 1 tower. Scream use the Aegis against the World Weaver, and that's the trigger for Inbound to go to the Draconic form. He gets rooted out instantly upon G transforming in. Raffer gets smacked by through space and time, and Stewart's last basic will take him down. That puts Stewart on a rampage for the Scarabs already at that 5-0.
Zeros was able to take the Aegis off of Scream, but Bobby was able to take the beads off of Johnny, so now he's going to have to play much safer inside of these engagements, and the Solar Scarabs strip away the Tier 1 tower. They take the life from iRaffer, and what's spawning up just now? Primal Fury. Going to be coming up very soon. Solar Scarabs have got a clear-cut path on where to push their lead. This Gold Fury should be on their minds.
Stewart already with 2 stacks on his Rage as well, and working towards that Wind Demon, so he's going to have 2 big crit items online very soon at the pace that the Scarabs are running. It's 7 kills on the board versus the 3 for the Valhalla Valkyries, and now the gap, even still, the gap is still right there. The Valhalla Valkyries are only down 300 gold at this point, 1,800 experience. Yeah, that never fun to be down 2k experience, but that's minuscule compared to what you would expect with the kill lead that the Scarabs have put up.
But what are the Scarabs going to do now? If they want to push that gold lead, maybe grouping up around the Primal Fury could be the way in. SOT, though, on the opposite side of the map, is just trying to distract Johnny around this blue buff, and that means the Solar Scarabs are going to play a little bit slower than I think I would have liked to have seen them around this Primal Fury. Keep your eyes on these soul laners, and in particular, keep your eyes on Ducky. He is going to spell the intentions of the Valhalla Valkyries. If he's towards this gold, if he's towards mid, it's going to be a hard-fought defense from the Order side team, or even potentially the offense, considering the Solar Scarabs are scattered to the breeze right now. Ducky does make his rotation over, and it could be a pool here. Double Hunter composition between Kronos and this Neath in mid means that this Gold Fury, if it does get pulled, is going to burn very fast.
Stewart uses the Bifrost as an escape after getting the Draugr, and that'll be the call for the Primal Fury. Ult out of Zeros, only finds SOT, who's in no major danger as he dunks back trying to find Johnny, but he's being distracted while the Primal Fury started up. Inbound and Stewart are here to try and stop this one. Primal down to about half, but Inbound goes for the transformation. Ultimate out of IRAP trying to zone away. Stewart will do some decent damage back to him. Inbound gets stunned. Zeros is here, gets the root against them. Leap in from Inbound, and the ultimate from Baronic to try and close the gap. SOT manages to find Johnny on the right side of the map, but all here on the left side, it's Inbound and Baronic teaming up to take down Zeros. Now 3 low for the Solar Scares, and Emil and Ducky are looking to continue fighting back.
Inbound may have taken a couple steps too far, but great portal should get him out of there. But the D-transform spells the end of his life. Maybe not.
Okay, hold on. This is a roller coaster of emotions. Somehow Inbound gets through 2 separate portals to make it out. SOT, after killing Johnny on the right side, rotates all the way left and makes a huge impact, now picking up 2 more kills for the Scarabs, and maybe even going for the delayed deicide here, taking down Rapper. That's a deicide for the Scarabs.
Scarabs 12-3, 17 minutes into this game, finally find themselves with a fair deal of separation in both experience and gold. Remember, we were just breaking it down a moment ago. It was 1,600 experience, closer to 2K, and just around 500 gold in the lead. Now we're talking 8,000 experience, and after this gold, Fury maybe around 5,000 gold in favor of the Solar Scarabs, and this pace is absolutely favoring now the Chaos team. The Valhalla Valkyries, up until this point, were doing a very good job prolonging this match, making sure that these late game win conditions were able to get to that point. But I'd argue now the Solar Scarabs, with the lead that they have, can keep this pressure up very easily around the Fire Giant.
In just a matter of, 2 minutes, the Solar Scarabs have quadrupled themselves on all fronts. Quadrupled the gold lead, quadrupled the experience lead, and now quadrupled the kill count total over the Valkyries. 12 versus 3 at 18. A little bit of a fast early game, kind of teetered off and slowed down for a brief moment, but the Solar Scarabs are still looking for more fights. And SOT, all the while, he was right side. He was battling Johnny all the way between Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower. Managed to kill Johnny, and that fight goes on for so long at left. He's able to kill Johnny, rotate all the way over, and end up helping to pick up 2 more, actually it's 3 more kills off the tail end of it. And can we just talk about the roller coaster that we went through watching Inbound?
I mean, yes, it was a roller coaster. I thought he was dead for sure. Maybe a slow rotation from the Valhalla Valkyries. That D-transform with a Chronos on your team should probably spell his death, considering he was sub 20% HP, but was able to use the Coerce just before D-transforming, and then right after, and then utilizing those portals from Baronic, is able to escape with his life. Inbound playing on the knife's edge, and it's playing to his favor.
Inbound leaps in looking for a stun against Ducky, but he'll get stunned by the wall from SOT instead. SOT puts him down, puts his 4th kill on the board, and Scream is looking for more, walks through the portal to try and cut off the option, but Zeros backflips against the wall, and that may not be the place you wanted to backflip as SOT picks up the double kill, looking to go to the sky for a dunk down, looking for Johnny as he's surrounded by 3, but he doesn't need it as Baronic takes him out.
So now it's 3 members dead of the Valhalla Valkyries and 5 members of the Solar Scarabs, at least mid-adjacent, Fire Giant adjacent. SOT kind of going for a little bit of a split push, but can't argue against it. I'm not sure that Emilito and Rapper together could even take him down. Fire Giant should go to all 5 members, but keep your eyes on this Chronos. He's going for a flank.
Emil's trying for it. Scream rotate out. Fire Giant is still available. Gets the stun, but can't get in time to try and go for the steal. In fact, it looks like they just managed to get that Fire Giant through before he gets in. A nice attempt by Emil, but ends up losing out on his rewind because of it.
He does, but does he lose out on his life? Not this time around. SOT not quite in range to find that wall, but what will the Valhalla Valkyries lose? Well, a Tier 1 tower in the Soul Lane, Fire Giant, Pyromancer, and potentially from here, a lot of their odds at winning. 10,000 gold in favor of the Solar Scarabs, Fire Giant on 5 members, 3 Tier 2 towers still left standing on the side of the Valhalla Valkyries, and I'd argue that that is a worst case scenario situation. If I'm the Valkyries, I'm kind of wishing my Tier 2s were dead already so the Solar Scarabs wouldn't pull even further ahead, because defense not looking so good at this point from the Valks. The damage output from Emilito is decent into Stewart and maybe into Scream, but against everyone else, he's not really dealing enough damage to generate that threat. Telkines is the purchase for him, and you need to get a lot of auto attacks before that item pays for itself in damage, meaning that the Valhalla Valkyries need these fights to go a little bit longer than I think they will.
And at least Scream is holding up his end of the bargain, going a full damage this time around. Though with a Bastet, that's kind of, well, your real only option. So we discussed briefly earlier, she's only got a root. That's her only form of CC. Everything else is straight raw damage coming from this god, so he needs to get that full power build going. SOT has a little bit more play with his build as he can go towards this more hybrid style, and he's now zoning 3 people away from a tier 2 tower. Has Ducky, Raffer, and Johnny all distracted while Scream tries to steal away this tier 2 tower and will be successful in doing so. Stewart has to be careful, uses the Aegis to get away from the damage from the stun of Hemel. Veronica's here to try and save his life and will manage to do so.
Emil saying, Stewart, bud, you might have got the better end earlier, but now I'm starting to approach that late game. Can't just walk into my tower through me, and, well, he was not able to. Stewart forced back to base here, and Emil maintains everything.
SOT takes over half of Zeros' health by himself, goes up into the Anvil of Dawn looking for a target to dunk down, but it will be Emilitu that he ends up dunking against and uses the hammer just to port himself back out towards the tier 2 tower. He'll reunite with Scream in order to start pushing the second tier 2 tower on the map, and well, there's only one left for them to try and go for, and it looks like Veronica has made his way towards that side to start the push.
Stewart slowly crossing the map himself. Once he starts to rejoin the rest of his team, should spell the beginning of these Phoenix sieges. SOT, so annoying at this point, so tanky against all this magic damage from the Valhalla Valkyries. He's doing whatever he wants, but inbound should spell the start of this siege. Transformation into the dragon, into a coerce, given just a little bit of time and space, could shut down this Phoenix pretty fast.
Looking for an opportunity to go through. Scream throws the cat against Raffer just to root him in place, but inbound taking a little bit of damage from Ducky and from Emilitu, so he'll have to leap away, and it looks like the Scarabs are happy with going for a retreat here. They still have the Fire Giant for a little over a minute and a half still, but seems like they're going to set their sights towards this Oni Fury as it has respawned and maybe try and get some pressure elsewhere on the map with these minions.
14,000 or maybe 13,000 gold in the lead for the Solar Scarabs. Oh, no, 14,000 after this one is going to fall. Oni Fury going to split up the entirety of the map with enhanced minion waves, and with this kind of gold lead, got to think the Solar Scarabs can win just about any team fight as they're starting to approach that 6th item slot. Some of them even finishing up their starter items as well. Relics starting to get upgraded. Upgraded Ankh for inbound means that anyone who gets healed on the side of the Valhalla Valkyries is suddenly going to be getting healed for less and taking more damage in that same node. And Ducky can't exactly be choosy with his heals. Those are all AoE. Rapper can't exactly be choosy. It bounces to whoever's nearby, meaning that really everyone's going to be affected pretty negatively by this Ankh that Bobby has purchased for himself. Fire Giant, though, will be spawning in just under a minute here, so maybe the Solar Scarabs decide to slow play it from here on out, pick up another clean Fire Giant, and then start to knock on the door of these Phoenixes.
They got 4 pushing up mid. They left SOT to his own devices right side of the map to push up that wave, and looking to maybe steal away a Scorpion and maybe a life or 2 along with it. Raffer loses out on half of his health bar. Ducky, fortunately, they're able to heal him back up with this Hell, and the Emoja coupling together with some heals. But as you were highlighting that Cursed Ankh, that was a immediate level 12 instant buy from inbound. He went back to base, bought it, and upgraded in the exact instance, and you need to. You're going up against this double heal comp, and when they're also both running the Lotus Crown, that's a lot of protection that they can stagger between themselves no matter who that heal goes towards.
I like seeing Stewart utilize that vision. He steps up, uses the first ability, and then starts to back his way away, just making sure that the Valhalla Valkyries cannot step too far forward, and maybe Zeros does just that.
Zeros lost over 600 health just about from that pounce, and maybe losing out on even more. Reverse Rebuke comes through from Raffer to disengage the fight, but SOT is looking for a dunk down from the ult. He'll find Raffer and Ducky, but immediately ports away and goes for the stun. Now 4 have turned their sights towards SOT. Johnny and Zeros engaging through. Zeros even expending the backflip to go through, but there's a portal from Baronic just to make sure he can get out, but Emilito has caught him on the tail end of the portal. Inbound is here with the stun, but Emil gets the rewind.
Scream does pounce in and does not have the ability to jump back just yet. Dropped down by 50% thanks to the damage from Zeros and Ducky. But Solar Scarabs, they've established a defensive positioning yet again, but that was an expensive engagement costing both Anvil of Dawn through space and time, as well as the Dragon transformation from inbound. So the siege potential, the burn potential of this Fire Giant has taken a major hit.
And the Phoenixes have lost out a good chunk of health too. That'll make for an easy siege when they decide to go towards them, as they don't have to worry about chipping the entire health bar away. They're both sitting just around the half health mark. Pyromancer goes down, and now the Scarabs are set up around the Fire Giant. Raffer gets caught out of his own Riptide, instantly stunned. Now he has to go on full retreat. Scream leaps in, and SOT goes back up into the sky looking for his target. And he's got 3 prime and ready to go. Emil just misses out on getting hit by the Anvil of Dawn, but Raffer has to run as quick as he can, manages to get a nice heal back, but Scream using the ultimate is now looking for Zeros on the hunt, but can't close the gap in time. and the Solar Scarabs will have to disengage.
Poor ultimate from Scream there, doesn't get much value, and now the Valhalla Valkyries, utilizing all that sustain in their draft, are able to fully heal back up and get ready for yet another Fire Giant defense.
Inbound gets hit by a little bit of damage from Raffer. Everybody from the Scarabs are backing up. They don't have that same luxury of sustain. Inbound uses the Draconic Transformation, but only with SOT in the area. And now the Valkyries, after that fight, able to heal themselves back up. Raffer's ultimate is coming back online. Emil's is now back online. And what are they missing out on at the time comparatively? A Frenzy and a set of beads from Raffer compared to 4 relics on the flip side for the Scarabs.
And the Scarabs have just about no ultimates available, whereas the Valkyries have maintained the majority, if not all, of theirs. The target selection so far from the Solar Scarabs has been a little bit interesting. Scream acting as a solo agent, chasing out zeros when there was a 4-man stack from the Valhalla Valkyries. Could have spelled a little bit difference inside of this engagement had he decided to stay with the rest of his team. And now the low damage output from the majority of the Scarabs, barring Scream, is starting to rear its head. Despite all this anti-heal that the Scarabs have elected to pick up, they still are not able to finish off their kills. They are not able to really commit to these team fights for too long, and it's exemplified by the 2 people standing in front right now. Ducky and Raffer are just sustaining way too much. They're tanky, and they're keeping everybody else topped off.
And finally, Baronic will answer with some anti-heal of his own. It's really, realistically, only been these Brawlers, Beatsticks, and the Cursed Ankh when inbound can get them off in the fights. But outside of that, that 40% you're getting from these 2 assassins who are not fully focusing on the same targets. Zeros, yeah, he's being chased out, but that just means it's anti-heal from Scream only on 1 instance. He's not able to spread it through. Inbound leaps in, finds Ducky, and gets the ultimate out of Raffer, and he's going to be evaporated in the midst of his own waters. But Inbound and Scream are both low as well. SOT goes into Sky, finds both Zeros and Ducky. Ducky down in. Zeros able to flip away through space and time, misses, and Zeros on the wrong side of the wall for SOT. He's going to get rooted away, but Stewart finds one. SOT with the spin finds another. Baronic closes it out, and Johnny all the while does manage to find Scream, but that's a 4-for-1 for the Scarabs.
Better believe SOT is not going to let Johnny go back to base easily at that low HP and no true escapability. It's only a matter of time until SOT is able to close gap. Right side, Phoenix falls expeditiously, and Johnny, well, he's still on tour. SOT just trying his best.
Johnny is flailing about, just trying to get any sustain that he can and take any boxing match he can, but it's too little too late for him, as he will likely fall down to SOT while the Titan is being sieged by the rest of the Scarabs. Raffer is here to try and play bodyguard for it, but that's only 1 lone support to try and stop this one. Stewart is getting low. Titan will turn its sights back towards inbound and will fall down. Solar Scarabs playing with their food a little bit, but at the end of the day, do come up with the 2-0 win.
A convincing, aggressive play style here for the Solar Scarabs. They came in with a game plan, and the game plan was W key, and they executed on it very well. I mean, the Valhalla Valkyries in both games of this set were essentially just not allowed to breathe.
There was a little bit of pushback there from the Valkyries. The sustain seemed to be a little bit too much for them, but finally, Baronic did manage to pick up some anti-heal, and I guess that little bit was all that they needed to push forward. Solar Scarabs, at the end of the day, claim the 2-0. We're going to take it to a break, and then we'll come back with the deaths to close out the set.
Meet the cereal kids are crazy for, Cthulhu. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now. You will take part. Save up to 33% off gem bundles. You will take part.
Crazy crispity, crazy crunchity, crazy crunch.
Select chests up to 50% off. You will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off. You will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor. Worshippers and XP. You will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y, Cthulhu. Surgeon General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a prize because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time is a construct. They not all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balanced breakfast. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Welcome back, everybody. The Solar Scarabs end up taking the 2-0 victory and thus redeeming themselves after losing to the Valkyries earlier on this phase. Their revenge is now complete, and they can celebrate by going to participate in our great gem sale that we got going on there. Cthulhoops are officially here, and with them, the gem sale goes from August 20th, which we're already a week into, until September 6th. So not a lot of time left already to capitalize on this great gem sale. The Odyssey has arrived, and you'd best be stocking up on those gems because you're going to want them. Trust me, the skins coming out for the Odyssey are absolutely nuts. So make sure you're snagging those. Again, gem sale happening from now until September 6th. Aggro joined by Taco here on the desk. And Taco, look, a much closer game through the mid-game there. The Valkyries kept it close through about 15 minutes or so. And then it got to late game where you think, okay, sustain, we've got Hell, we've got Yamojo, we're going to be doing it. And it was a team doing it. It was just the Scarabs.
For the Scarabs, it was just so much mobility. For the Valhalla Valkyries, they could never really manage to keep anybody locked down in one spot long enough to actually kill them. And I think that was a prime issue. When you look at the mobility that was available for the Scarabs, you've got Giannis, you've got Bastet, you've got Thor, and a lot of that, I think, action being generated through the Bastet and Thor especially. Solar Troll had a fantastic game. I think that he was really able to cause a lot of disruption for the backline there out of the Valhalla Valkyries, and even in those instances where we saw them grouping and attempting to try and challenge on some of those objectives, they just fell short. Just not really anything that Johnny or Emilito and Raffer could really do. The duo lane falling behind relatively early on here as well. Valk's just getting punished where it mattered, I think.
I mean, the duo lane for the Scarabs looked great today. Stewart had a great scoreline. Inbound did as well. The other side, the Valkyries duo lane goes 0-10. It's going to be difficult when that's usually how it goes over there in the duo lane. The Inbound and Stewart, I think you're starting to see their synergy continue to rise, though. An impressive performance from those two.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're definitely feeling pretty good about this revenge victory over the Valhalla Valkyries. And, you know, why not piggyback off of that whole gem sale thing if you guys want to show some extra support towards the Scarabs, the Valkyries, or any of these SPL teams. Have to remember they also have those in-game badges and little ward features. So only a couple hundred gems a pop, and with the gem sale going on, that's easy. That's free.
You got plenty for the whole league at that point. Yeah, no excuses, guys. Make sure you're picking that up for the gem sale for the Cthulhoops there. Overall, an impressive performance here from the Scarabs. I mean, you can only beat who's in front of you. The Valkyries, we've talked about their struggles consistently throughout the year. We understand their situation. But if you're a team like the Solar Scarabs and you're trying to gain some momentum in time for Phase 3, coming out and looking like this, I think, is important.
This is a really impactful set, I would say, more so for Inbound and Stewart's mental over everything else, because been a lot of tough competition, I think, that the Scarabs have been having to face in previous weeks, and you know, given the roster changes on top of everything else, it can make things a little bit tough, but it's good to see the bounce back, especially in such a dominant fashion.
Bounce back did happen there for the Scarabs, and we've got one member of the duo lane and the team captain standing by. It's Inbound joining us here for the post-game interview. Bobby, congratulations on the victory today. You guys looked determined, I would say. Did you really want that revenge from your earlier loss this phase?
I mean, it wasn't really revenge, more than we just wanted to, like, I don't know, pick up a couple wins, like, end the phase off. Like, that was just the biggest thing. The momentum, just like before going into Phase 3, I think matters more than that little bit of a revenge game.
Fair enough. But both games, they were first pick, and they take Yamojo away from you. You're starting to get some respect on that pick, Bobby. Maybe about time, you'd think?
Yeah, maybe with that respect, we can get some wins with the Emojo to, like, you know, back up the respect. But, you know, it happens. But, yeah, they took away the Emojo. But
this is best case scenario, man. They're taking it away from you, so you don't even have to play it, and everyone starts to feel like it's inevitable. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even have to worry about executing on it. This is best case scenario for you.
Yeah, I don't even have to back up the respect with wins now. They're just taking it away anyway. Perfect.
Perfect. We're right. We got them right where we want them. Talking seriously about how you guys want to close out phase 2 and, like you were saying, gaining some of that momentum. I feel like you guys have been really improving week to week. That's what Baronic talked about in the pregame interview. What do you think has been the biggest difference for you guys as you've gotten this new roster and have started to gel?
I mean, the biggest difference is just having everyone get on the same page. Like, when you switch out jungle, it kind of changes up almost everything that's played because he plays with solo, he plays with mid, he plays with support, he plays with ADC. Like, so you have to, like, get that, I don't know, synergy down, and then Stuart needs to get synergy with me in the early game, Scream in kind of the mid game, Brennan in the mid and late game. And I think just getting more games under our belt is just the biggest thing. Even though at the beginning of the swap, it didn't look that great. I think every single game, it just looks better, and our team just looks better, even if we're not picking up those wins. I think once we start getting that late game down against some of those better teams, I think we'll be in a very scary spot for other teams.
Looking forward to it, Bobby. Congratulations on the win. Hey, you've got to come in for a content day again soon because Mifflin's starting to think he's good at ping pong again. So we got to put an end to that.
Fair. I also got to get my jersey from there too.
Yeah, you forgot your jersey here last time. That was really great work from you. But you were here so early for it that you had no choice. You know what I mean?
Plenty of time to spare.
Totally. Plenty of time. Thanks again, Bobby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that, Taco, we have a team moving out of that 8th place tie with the Valhalla Valkyries. The Solar Scarabs now sitting at 2 wins on the phase. That'll take them up to that 7th seed going into the end of phase 2.
Yeah, you really just outed Bobby there, though. He could have played it off as the whole, I'm so excited to show off this Inside Apparel Scarabs merch,
Sure.
A new dawn rises and...
I thought he came to get it. It's been here for over a week. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't here last week. I assumed he came to get it. But, hey, Bobby's a busy man. He's doing quite a bit, including improving at that Yamoja, apparently. Take a look at the rest of this week's schedule. We've got the Oni Warriors and Camelot Kings tomorrow, alongside the Bolts and the Valkyries again, closing out their phase 2. But most importantly, Taco, it's our next game here today, the Bolts versus the Leviathans. And it's so important, not just because it's a great matchup between two of the best teams in our league, but they're out there in the break room, maybe doing something, maybe messing with Bobby's jersey as far as I'm concerned, because they're here in studio. Always fun to get those in studio.
Imagine they start signing it.
Oh, that would be good.
That'd be
that would be good.
Maybe that should be his punishment. We should all just sign it.
That's a good idea.
And then make him wear it.
We got to go look for a Sharpie.
I think that's his only jersey, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
So he'd have to wear it.
That would be funny. Just a big old aggro right here, that you see.
T looks better. T looks better.
Agree to disagree. We're going to go look for a Sharpie to start signing Bobby's jersey. We'll be right back, bringing game number 2 here today on Friday of the SPL.